Today, we will be able to solve oblique triangles using law of sines. Law of sines says little a over sine big A equals little b over sine big B equals little c over sine big C. Notice in the top, they're all lowercase letters. Notice in the bottom, the denominator, they're all uppercase or capital letters. So the numerator is all the sides, all the outsides. The denominator is the angles from the insides, okay? We will only use two of these at a time. We'll never use all three at one time together like that. We'll only use two at a time. Here's an example. We might use a over sine A equals b over sine B, or a over sine A equals c over sine C, or b over sine B equals c over sine C, but notice only two at a time. Okay, in order to determine which two of the fractions we're going to use, we look to see which ones do we know two of the same letters. We know both A's, both B's, both C's, what have you. That's how we determine which two fractions we're going to use. Here's our steps. We're going to label our triangle, label our sides A, B, C. We're going to choose our two fractions that we're going to use, and then we're going to substitute and solve. All right, our first example. First thing we're going to do is label our sides. Remember, opposite A is A, opposite B is B, and opposite C is C. Okay, what are they asking me to find? They're asking me to find side A to C, AC, which is the side we've labeled as B. So that's the one pair I'm going to use. I know little b is what I'm looking for and big B is what I have, so that's one of my fractions that I'm going to use. So how do I determine which my other fraction I'm going to use? Do I know both A's? Do I know both big A and little a? Do I know both big C and little c? No, I actually only know one of each. But if you look, big C can easily be found by subtracting angle A and angle B from 180. So do 180 minus 120 minus 31 equals 29. So big C is 29. I now know big C and little c. So that's my other pair that I'm going to use. I'm going to use B over sine B equals C over sine C. Alright, so that's determining my formula. The next step is substitute and solve. So let's substitute what we know. Little b we don't know. Big B is 120. Little c is 12 and big C is 29. So we substitute our values in. Now we're going to cross multiply. So I get b sine 29 equals 12 sine 120. Alright, now it's time to get b by itself. Simply divide both sides by sine 29. So I get b equals 12 sine 120 over sine 29. Now I simply put the right side in the calculator. Not the b equals, but starting with the 12 sine 120 over sine 29. Make sure your calculator is in degree mode. Please make sure your calculator is in degree mode or you'll get the wrong answer. Put it in the calculator and you get b equals 21.4. Alright? Next example. I'm going to label across from A is A, across from B is B, across from C is C. They're asking me to find angle B. So I'm going to use B and B. Now what am I going to use? Little a and big A or little c and big C? Notice we know both big C and little c. So that's the other one we're going to use. We're going to use B over sine B equals C over sine C. Okay, so let's substitute what we have. 13 over sine B, remember capital B is what we're looking for, angle B is what we're looking for, so we leave that as the letter, equals 22 over sine 80. Now we're going to cross multiply. So I get 22 sine B equals 13 sine 80. Now here's a little different. First thing I'm going to do is divide by 22 on both sides because I want to get B by itself. So I'm going to divide 22 on both sides. So I get sine B equals 13 sine 80 over 22. Now, I've got to get rid of sine. But sine is its own operation. It's not add, subtract, multiply, or divide to get rid of it. It's its own operation. So to get rid of it, we have to do the inverse sign. Sine to the negative 1. But remember, what we do to the left side, we also have to do to the right side. So do sine to the negative 1. On the left side, the sine negative 1 and sine go away. They undo each other. They're inverses, so they're gone. So I'm just left with B equals, and on the right side, I have sine to the negative 1 of 13 sine 80 over 22. And now you just put that whole right side in your calculator, and you should get 35.6. All right, last example. Solve the triangle if B equals 20 degrees, C equals 31 degrees, and B is 210. All right, solve. Solve means find everything you're missing. Notice I have big B, little b, and big C, which means I'm missing big A, and little c. So I've got to find all three of those things. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to find is my C. Then I'll come back and find my a's. But I'm going to use b to help me do it. So I'm going to use c over sine c equals b over sine b because I know both b's. All right, so c over sine 31 equals 210 over sine 20. Cross multiply. So c sine 20 equals 210 sine 31. Divide by sine 20 on both sides. So c equals 210 sine 31 over sine 20. Put that in the calculator. You get 316.2. And that's how we found little c. Now I'm going to find big A by subtracting 180 minus 20 minus 31. That gives me 129 degrees for big A. So now I can find little a. So little a over sine 129 equals 210 over sine 20. Cross multiply. I get a sine 20 equals 210 sine 129. Divide by sine 20 on both sides. So a equals 210 sine 129 divided by sine 20. And that's 477.2.